Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Unsung Heroes. We are here for episode number 22 of the year. The AMA Pro Motocross Championship returned on Saturday for the 511 RedBud National. And of course, RedBud, one of the most beloved tracks on the circuit, 4th of July celebration, and indeed the race fell on 4th of July this year, celebrating the 250th anniversary of America's independence and freedom. It was a fantastic weekend. I got to make the trip up, my first RedBud National. Loved it there. It was an incredible experience, and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to be there. Thank you once again for listening. I'm Trey Stire, your host, of course. Be sure to find this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart and YouTube. If you prefer the written version of the articles, those are, of course, still available on treystire.wordpress.com. A lot to cover from RedBud in the 450 class to 250 class. SMX Next was back in action for the first time this summer, first time in a little over 2 months after their Supercross finale at Philadelphia at the end of April, and also a few notes from Canada as well, our segment, The Canadian Corner, continuing throughout the summer. Without further ado, let's get into the show and let's get right into an interview with one of the top 450 privateers from this weekend at RedBud. We are going to kick things off on the RedBud edition of the Unsung Heroes with an interview from the 450 class. Joining us this week on the show, he is fresh off his first career pro motocross points, his fifth start on a 450. He went 17-18 for 17th overall, putting points on the board. A fantastic ride throughout the weekend. Joining us from Danville, Virginia, the number 188 from the Partzilla ROKiT Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki team, Hamden Hudson. He's been on here before when it was just the written series. Now he's on here for the audio. Hamden, congratulations on your first career points. How was that feeling on Saturday when you crossed finish line, realizing that you were in the top 20 and you put some points on board in pro motocross?
Yeah, it was good, and thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. I wish that I had done it earlier. I feel like it took longer than I expected it to. So even racing last year in the 250 class, I wasn't able to score any points. I had some good rides, but wasn't able to put it all together. And even 2 weekends ago at High Point, I was close to the first moto. Actually, I was really close to the first moto. I had like top 17 start, and then I made some passes to 13th, and I was like I was solid where I was. Like nobody was gaining on me. Yeah, I was riding really good, so I would have finished that moto, and I had an issue with my front brake, so I had to pull off and get my front brake cover taken off because it was like locking up my front wheel. So yeah, I'm happy to back it up with my good riding at High Point and then the actual finishes in RedBud. So yeah, I'm happy about it, and I look forward to doing it more often.
Go ahead and take me through your weekend. Obviously, we were talking a little bit before this. The gnarly storms that hit the track on Friday completely changed everything up. Of course, it was a beautiful day, very humid on Friday afternoon. Press day happened, no problem. The SMX Next race, Moto 1 happened, no problem. And then the storm rolled in. Everybody was sent home from the track, and honestly, I didn't know what to expect, and you were probably in the same boat Saturday morning, but man, the track looked, from my perspective, like it was very, very good. The amount of dirt they scraped off the track, they were hard at work. Shout out to the RedBud track crew because the track looked almost perfect, probably perfect, actually, considering the conditions that were held. And right away, everybody was jumping pretty much everything on the track. It was still a little bit slower, you could tell, but it started to dry out throughout the day. Talk about that going into things on Saturday morning, because I'm sure you guys didn't really know what to expect. And also, just take me through your day in general. As I mentioned, points on the board in both motos, so it was a really productive day for you.
Yeah, I didn't know it originally rained until pretty much Friday nights. Someone had brought it up, and I was like, I thought they were joking. They were like, it's going to be a mutter tomorrow. And then I started seeing videos of the track, and I really wasn't worried because I knew it was going to rain much more after that. So whatever had came down, then I figured they could just like push the track and it'll be fine. So yeah, the first qualifying when I went out there, it was it really wasn't terrible. I mean, it was deep at like the bottoms of the hills and stuff, but I don't think it would have been much better with just how they normally water it for qualifying anyways. So the second qualifying was actually worse than the first, with the sun pulling the moisture out of the ground. I feel like it just like made everything a lot thicker. I actually got stuck pretty good in the second qualifying in a rut. So, but no, yeah, qualifying went well. I qualified 25th overall, and then first moto had a pretty decent start. I think I was like 20th around the finish line the first lap, and then I made my way up to 17th around probably like 4 laps to go, and then that's kind of just where I stuck. And then kind of the same thing for Moto 2. I had probably like, I think I was like 22nd first lap, and then made my way up to 18th, passed for 17th, and then I think someone had got him around me with like 2 laps to go, so I had 18th finish that moto. So yeah, it was good, and yeah, it's just good to get that off of my chest. You know, every weekend I go out there and I want to score points, but I haven't put it all together yet, so I'm happy about it.
Obviously, you've been with the PRMX crew this year. It's year 2 for you in the professional ranks, but the PRMX team is one that's grown steadily over the last few years. Of course, guys like Cade Clayson went through there. Mitchell Harrison, of course, Money Mitch. He had a great day as well, 15-15 in his home race. The PRMX boys were firing on all cylinders. But talk about your experience with the team, because you started pretty early compared to most people. Everybody always thinks, oh, January is usually when you start, February if you're an East Coast guy, but back in October, you were already getting your feet wet with the PRMX crew, running some of those Partzilla Arena Cross rounds and performing well at those. 250 East Supercross had some ups and downs, but you put her in the show in the mud race in Philly. But talk about your overall experiences with the PRMX program. Really great group of guys over there. Julian, of course, I always hear great things about him. Craig, I always like to go talk to Craig at the races. Haven't been able to the last couple rounds I've been to, but he's a great dude and always keeping things top notch over there at the PRMX team.
Yeah, definitely. We have a great group of guys. Everyone, from my perspective, gets along very well, and I have a good time with them. Jules is very, very good at what he does, and he's very good as a team owner. He gives us, I mean, whatever we can ask for, he'll provide it or try to provide it. Same with Craig. They're just a great group of guys. My teammates, Jack and Mitchell, they're a blast to be around every weekend. Yeah, we just have a good time. It's fun. The spirits are light under the rig, and it's just good to be able to look forward to going racing and not having to deal with like so much stress and everything when everyone's just like moving at their own pace. So yeah, it's cool. And I love being around them. Good group of guys.
Speaking of the crew, obviously in motocross there's so many different training programs. Whether you're at a facility, whether you're doing your own thing, there are very few teams, it seems like, that all stick together. I know the Star Yamaha boys usually tend to stick together, but yourself, Mitchell Harrison, Jack Chambers, of course, riding together during the weeks. Chase Sexton even would come over and ride with you guys a little bit. Talk about the dynamic of not only being at the track with those guys on race weekends, but also at the track during the week, how much that strengthened your guys' bond as a team, as teammates, and also were you able to pick up anything when Chase would come over to the track and spend some laps with you guys?
Yeah, definitely. Whenever he comes over, or when he was coming over, when he was riding, he he's just such a solid rider, just someone to watch. I think one of the best things you can do is just watch other riders that are great at what they do, which Chase is. So yeah, I mean, being able to sit there and watch him just puts things into a better perspective of how it's supposed to be done, like his form and everything. Yeah, I mean, it's just great to have someone like that. Mitchell too. He's done this for a while, so it's good to have him there and have his like knowledge, I guess, on how everything is, and yeah, I mean, we just have a good time. It's a we keep it fun, and I look forward to going there every day and getting to do what I love too. So yeah, it's a great group of guys, and I think I think all of us have like just progressed each other a lot, just pushing each other every day. Jack and I mostly ride together most of the time. Mitchell sometimes does his own thing. So being able to have Jack there, he rips too. So it's all really good.
You're on the 450 for outdoors, and of course, if people have followed your career, you just turned a full-time pro last year, so you're still very early into your professional career. Some guys tend to move up to the 450 early for outdoors. Some guys wait around a little bit. Different strokes for different folks, obviously. And I talked to Mark Finnis this weekend on press day as well, and he just made his first 450 start as well. And I was asking him about the differences of the bike, and of course, power is one of the biggest things. But what went into your decision to hop up to the 450, and talk me through some of the things you noticed right away? Because I love to get the perspective from the racers. Everybody tends to feel or notice a little bit different things, whether they're switching bike brands or moving up classes. So what was it like for you the first time you hopped on that Kawasaki 450 for the PRMX boys and started spinning laps on it?
I mean, it was great right off the bat. I've always, even in my amateur days, I've always leaned more towards a 450 because I'm not a very like aggressive on the pipe rider. So the 450 just always fitted me better. Just having that smooth power, just whenever you need it, it's there. I honestly, at the beginning of the season, I thought I was going to race 250 outdoors. And then I had mentioned to Jules at probably the very beginning of our relationship, how I like riding 450. And then he was like, what do you think about racing 450? And I'm like, all right, that sounds good. So I got on one, and pretty much first day, it was great. I loved it. And yeah, it's been pretty much that ever since. So I love the 450, the power of it, the handling of it. I think I just fit one better than 250.
This weekend, of course, I got to ask about this. It was RedBud, one of the biggest and most well-known rounds in pro motocross, one of the probably the rowdiest crowd in the sport. But it was July 4th weekend, a big time, America's 250th birthday. There was so much red, white, and blue in the crowd, and there always is at RedBud, but you could tell it was turned up a notch this year. So many patriotic themes and outfits, and of course all of the graphics throughout the paddock. PRMX guys had some. Talk about racing on the 4th of July, because RedBud every year, of course, it's on that weekend, but sometimes it's July 2nd, July 1st, July 3rd, July 5th. Not all the time that you get to race on July 4th, and here we are this year on such a big anniversary for this country's history, and you guys get to race. Talk about racing on such an important holiday, and also talk about the patriotic stuff from your guys' team, because I know so many teams had different gear, different graphics to celebrate the history of America.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, I think RedBud always goes hand in hand with July 4th, no matter which day it's on. So, yeah, I mean, it's a massive crowd, and I love the patriotism from all the fans to the riders and teams. Everything they do is super cool. Julian had us pretty much kitted out from bike to gear to helmet. Everything was red, white, and blue. Our pit shirts, he got some done for July 4th, so that was cool. We were giving him crap because he's we call him a French Canadian American. So he went out for the 4th of July for us, and yeah, it's sweet to see the whole team just repping the American flag, and yeah, it's wonderful to be able to celebrate that day and race on that day too. So it's cool.
11 rounds of pro motocross. We are going to officially hit the halfway mark. Moto 1 this weekend at Southwick. Of course, you've had some strong rides, been right there flirting with the points, and you finally got the job done at RedBud. Talk to me about the goals for the rest of your season. I'm sure I've heard you say continue scoring points is obviously one of the biggest ones, but I'd love to know your mindset, what you want to keep working on and keep growing for, and also give me your thoughts on Southwick this weekend. I know last year, oddly enough, we talked after Southwick for the Stire Sound, and you had a chaotic weekend there last year, from some LCQ collisions to making it in the motos. But what does Hamden Hudson want to accomplish in the last half of the 2026 Pro Motocross season?
Um, I'd like to figure out my second qualifying, honestly. My first qualifying has been like pretty solid. Like I've been in the teens a couple of times, like 21st a couple of times, and I'm cool with that. In the second qualifying, I'll be like 25th. So I know it's not racing. I know it, I mean, it just has to do with gate pick, but I'd like for that second qualifying to be better. And then as for racing, I think an obtainable goal for me will be top 15 this weekend. I looked, or I could see top 15 in front of me pretty much the whole moto, and yeah, I mean it's right there, and I think that'd be a good goal for me. Even at high point, like I was running in the top 15 before I had a bike problem. So yeah, I'd say top 15 is my goal for the rest of the season. I think I can put myself in that position and, maybe do a little better than that. So, yeah, I mean that's what I'm looking for, and I think that's what the team would be happy with too.
Really quick, also, is there any round you have specifically circled on your calendar that you really can't wait to get to this second half of the season?
I'd say honestly Buds, because it's kind of more so a home race for me. The family and everyone, family friends are all going to come out and watch. It's only about like 4 or 5 hours from my house in Virginia. So yeah, probably that one. I like all of them pretty good, even Southwick. I like Southwick. It's cool to change it up, get some sand in there, see like where everyone else is strong, or see if they're worse in sand. So it's we got a lot of cool rounds coming up. Millville is enjoyable. It's when I first got there last year, it looks nothing like it does on TV. On TV, it looks way more mellow than it is, but those hills and the climbs up those things are way bigger. So yeah, there's some cool rounds coming up. Probably Washougal though. Honestly, Washougal's sick. I like Washougal, the trees and everything. It's a really cool round. I like Washington State in itself, just like the environment and everything about it. Yeah, it's really cool. Looking forward to that too.
You're probably pretty stoked you're going to have that 450 power up Mount Martin and Horsepower Hill this year. But Hamden Hudson, thanks for joining me once again here on the Unsung Heroes, and thanks for giving some insight into your weekend at RedBud. As we conclude, of course, I always like to give riders a chance to say thank you to those who have been supporting them throughout the year. So go ahead and say thank you to your team, those who have been supporting you throughout 2026.
Oh yeah, the team PRMX, Blaster Power, Partzilla, Kawasaki team, ROKiT, my mechanic Justice, Julian, everyone, trainer Zaka. Yeah, he's been right there with me. Don't really see too much of him because it's behind the scenes at the track every weekend, but he's been playing a big deal in everything. Yeah, just everyone who supports it. It's a big deal, and a lot goes into it that people don't see. So yeah, just big thank you to the whole team and everyone who stands behind me.
Thanks for reminding me to get the plug in there as well. Partzilla, the best for parts. They support us over at Transworld Motocross. Go to motocross.com and you can click on the banner, and I believe you might get a discount or something through that link. Go check out partzilla.com for all your parts needs, not just motocross, but also ATVs, UTVs, jet skis. They also sell some car stuff as well. But Hamden, thank you so much for joining me. Best of luck throughout the rest of the season and, of course, this weekend at Southwick, and best of luck in the rest of your 450 motocross season.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on.
We are doubling up on interviews this week on the Unsung Heroes. 3 or 4 times, I ain't telling no lies. Welcome back to the Unsung Heroes. He has joined us in the past, now joining us on the audio edition. Solid performance at RedBud. He was one of the home riders from the state of Michigan, scoring points in both motos aboard his MX6 Racing Kawasaki machine, holding down the fort for the team as well as the lone rider in the pro ranks, 1917 for 19th overall. Please welcome back to the Unsung Heroes, Marshal Weltin. What's up, man? I'm sure you had to be stoked. Home race in the books. How was it?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a fun weekend. I mean, I always love having a reason to come back to Michigan. I'm down in Florida, bought a house down here, so it's been I mean, I've been gone from Michigan for quite some time now. 2013 is when I first moved away for racing, and been on this, this path ever since. I don't know if you can quite call it a career, but it's my job right now. And yeah, I'm just stoked to be able to, continue racing, and it's fun still being in the mix. I mean, classes, it's not getting any easier, and it's definitely a battle out there, even all the way back in 17th and 19th place. It was cool to kind of show I had some fight in me there, Moto 2, and beat some pretty recognizable guys, on some really big programs. So it's fun being in the mix of everything.
We'll go ahead and get into your weekend, of course, RedBud. A lot of pomp and circumstance around that round usually. This year, especially with the 4th of July celebrations, 250th anniversary of America's independence. So a lot of hype, a lot of extra red, white, and blue in the crowd. But home race, you were the only guy on the team in the pro ranks, as I mentioned. Of course, Gavin Betts was holding things down in SMX Next. But solid day. Scoring points in both motos. As you mentioned, you were showing fight. You were right there around factory guys. And man, there are so many talented racers in the class, from dudes who have been established and veteran guys like yourself, plus a bunch of younger riders, a bunch of rookies coming into the class this year, especially Star Yamaha guys. Take me through your day overall at RedBud, from qualifying to the motos. I talked with Hamden Hudson, who I had on the show a little bit earlier, and of course the track. Nobody really knew what to expect when we pulled up to the track on Saturday morning after all of the rain and thunderstorms we got on Friday morning. Take me through your day, what you thought of the track, because you got to get on it a little bit earlier in the afternoon, but a solid day for you at RedBud.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think everybody was kind of up in the air how it was going to be. I was optimistic about it. Growing up racing there, seemed like there would always be that exact same scenario happen almost every weekend. Not every weekend, maybe every other weekend growing up, where some torrential downpour would come through and you're like, there's no way we're going to be able to ride. It's going to be a mutter tomorrow. And I mean, the track crew, that's why RedBud's the best. I mean, they have the equipment, they have the staff, they got the experience, and they have the facility, and, that's some of the best dirt in the country. So, I think, with everything, all things considered, it was a really good racetrack for what they could make out of it. And it's tough, especially on that 250. You gotta be a little extra sendy when it's soft, and you don't have the power, that the 450 has to pull you out of some sketchy situations. So, that's been the biggest adjustment for me. Coming from 250 to 450 is just the send level. You don't need to go quite as hard on the. You don't need to push it quite as close to the edge on the 450, in my opinion, as you do on the 250, and yeah, it's just adjusting to that. It's been, I think, a little slower process than I'd like it to be this year. And, I've spent a lot of time on the 450, and you kind of just play around at quarter to half throttle all the time. And you can't get away with that on the 250. You got to be wide open. And when if you need to brake, it's kind of controlled with the clutch sometimes, or even wide open and braking, just so you keep the RPMs up. So it's been an adjustment for me, but I think it's been okay.
Of course, you go into the motos and all the hype's going off. You hear the national anthem playing. You have the flyover. You have the military personnel holding up the flags. So much in the opening ceremonies, of course, extra special on 4th of July. But once you got into the motos, it was a solid day. I've been to 3 out of the 5 nationals so far, and it really seems like you've been taking a little step forward here and there every time. Paula, you were right there on the edge of the points, got a couple. High Point, you were starting to get in your groove and really find that top 20 range the whole entire time, as well as RedBud. Take me through your afternoon in the motos. As you mentioned a little bit earlier, you were battling around several established names, several strong guys. So what did it take for you to be able to score points and get top 20s in both motos?
As long as I make it to Moto 2, I just know I got it within me that I can put in a push, and I'm going to be comfortable as the day goes on. It's always just that struggle of getting the day going, and I've been, battling qualifying all year. I qualified 36th a few weekends, and that's not a fun place to be mentally or, as the day goes on, it's not a good place, for the team. Like no one wants to be back down there, and just makes it tough with the start and analyzing bike setup, and you can't really find areas for progression because there's so much room. When you are down there, it's like, yeah, I mean, where do you need to go faster? And the answer is pretty much everywhere. So, it's tough starting the day out with, the qualifying, the way I've been qualifying. I don't want to be there. It's not, like I'm not trying and that I'm like content with it. I'm just, for me, I'm, a guy where as the day progresses, I get better. And I am happy it's not the other way, but I wish I could just get better. I could get to my potential at the beginning of the day. And, I think that's what it's going to take this weekend for Southwick moving forward is, I got to get there quick. Got to get my pace going a little quicker.
You have, of course, very important qualifying sessions this weekend in Southwick. Obviously, when those guys go out for B group, fresh track right away, they can lay down some really good lap times. But talk a bit about some of your battles as well at RedBud, because there were so many guys, it seemed like nose to tail and in close quarters on the track. But of course, there were certain areas you had to watch. You had Dudney and Davies up front in that first 250 moto, and of course that was catching a lot of people's attention. There were other battles deeper in the field, but you have these factory guys. Of course, the MX6 Racing Crew, a really solid program. They've put together some great results with yourself, with Derek Kelly, with Henry Miller throughout the season, but getting to battle those factory guys, I know throughout your career that's something you've taken pride in, whether you were getting top 10s in the 450 class or really fighting with everyone. Talk about this year battling with the crop, because as you mentioned, there are some guys that are established names, people have recognized for years, and plus you've got so much young talent in the class as well. And of course, the 250 division is like that typically, and it's been a while since you've been on the 250 outdoors, and now you get to mix it up with these fresh faces, these kids hungry for success, and you're going out there every weekend mixing it up with them.
I think to answer, it's just every position you're battling for, and there's nobody giving up one spot. I mean, maybe past 30th, it's a little more relaxed, but I would say I've been in battles for 25th this year where I'm sawing people's front ends off, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that because there's not even any points back there, but that's just how the race goes. Like nobody lets you have a spot no matter where you're at in the race. It's it's pushing to the limit, and I guess that's just the 250 class too. It's tough. People want points, and I'd say the more you go in that, I think it gets so aggressive there because the people in that 20th range, whether it's 25th or 15th, and it's people battling for their paycheck. That's how people are paying their bills, and that's it's a tough place to be. It's like, you're gonna take the food off my plate here, you're gonna pull the fork out of my hand, and no one wants to give that spot away, and that's what creates battles. I wish they'd showed a little more on TV because there's definitely some content in the back. We're definitely going for it, but yeah, it's fun. It definitely makes it fun, and I think people have given me a good amount of respect. I've been around for a while, and I try to keep it respectful for the most part, when we are battling, and everybody kind of seems to treat me with respect as well. So it's been fun racing this summer.
In the 250 class, as you've mentioned, it's been a bit of a hybrid season for you in the past few years. 250 for Supercross, 450 for Motocross. Several guys have done that, but this year you've stayed 250 class full time. It's been a long time since you've been on the 250 outdoors, and also it's been a while since you were on a Kawasaki as well. Obviously, when you were over in Europe, you had some time on the green machine, and now several years later, you're back on the green bike. A bit of a two-part question, but first of all, of course, talk about, you mentioned the speed level, you mentioned having to be on the gas all the time where you can relax a little bit more on the 450, but talking about dialing in your setup, because I'm sure there's a big difference setup-wise from suspension to all the little nuances of the 250, and also how much has the Kawasaki changed from the last generation that you were competing on back in your MX2 and EMX days?
I mean, the Kawasaki, it's a very agile bike. It handles really well, and it turns really well. It's more, you know, getting it set up for, the big hits, the big braking bumps and the big G outs. As far as all the, quick and, if there's S turns or any tight areas of the track, the bike is almost a cheat code for those areas. So it's just adjusting to that. Coming from the Yamaha, it was, kind of a bulldog with a lot of power and super stable, but it didn't excel in those other areas. So it's almost, the opposite of a Yamaha. But it's been good. I mean, I think we've learned a lot as a team with the whole MX6 squad, with testing and development with Stapes Performance and, Ollie and my mechanic Isaac. We've done a lot of work this year getting the bike dialed in and making adjustments to just, find the balance with stiffness to just, I don't know, overall comfort. And I think we're in a good direction, good spot right now, and there's a lot of good people supporting me, and supporting the team for that matter, to get us there.
Speaking of the team, and I've talked to both of your teammates, Henry and Derek, earlier in the season, but you joined that crew late in the summer last year for the last couple nationals, raced the SMX playoffs with them. Then it moved into a Kawasaki organization. Of course, Ollie Stone, so much experience working at factory teams, whether it was Pro Circuit Kawasaki, the Troy Lee Designs team. He brings so much expertise and he knows what it takes to win races and score podiums. Talk about the growth you've witnessed within the team, because obviously several veteran guys, not just on the crew, but of course rider-wise as well. Yourself, Derek, Henry, you've all been competing at a pretty high level for privateer guys for a long time. Talk about that growth you've seen all year long, because it seemed like a little bit of a late launch for the team when you guys were doing your photo shoots in January, but starting with the 250 East Supercross season, it seems like you guys hit the ground running right away. Henry got his first top 5. Yourself and Derek were getting top 10s. It's been a really solid season for the first official year one of MX6.
It really has. I mean, to think of, when things kind of came together for me last year with the team, just where we're at is, it's crazy to see where we are now. It's been, from my standpoint, super impressive to see what Chris has brought to the table with everything. He's taken no shortcuts anywhere. If you were to ask me what it needs, what you need to have a successful race team, he's checked pretty much all boxes, and it's been awesome to be a part of it. They made a lot of huge steps from the end of the year until this year with, staff and with parts on the bike and just everything. It's been really cool to see the progression, and I'm pumped to be part of it. It's been always my dream as a kid to be a part of a team and continue my racing career, and they've given me that opportunity, so I'm really grateful for it.
Speaking of that, I noticed in your Instagram post you posted a picture, I believe from 2013 during your amateur days, talking about how much you appreciate being able to go back and race RedBud so many times. And your career has brought you all around the world, of course, mainly here in America, but you spent some time up in Canada, spent some time over in Europe, you're world traveled. Talk about, for you, and I know you've mentioned it as well a couple times, that you've been racing for a long time, and sometimes careers are fairly short in motocross, but over a decade now, Marshal Weltin has been scoring points on a regular basis, competing with the best in the world. Does it continue to get better for you every time you go back to RedBud, knowing that you get another opportunity to not only go back home, but every single year you're still living the dream, you're still chasing that dragon and racing dirt bikes at the highest level in the world?
Yeah, it's for me, it's weird how it's almost gotten, I don't want to say easier, but it's been easier to treat it more consistent, because before I never viewed it as something that would be, that evolved for multiple years. It was always, oh, if I can make it to the end of the year, that'd be awesome, and then things, kind of just evolved, and, here I am 10 years later doing it, and I guess that's why I'm grateful for it, because I never expected to be here, and I'm happy that I'm able to. I mean, it's been my dream to just be able to race my dirt bike, and I'm stoked to be able to represent for my family and my friends. There's, we all kind of had that dream growing up to be able to keep racing there. So it's definitely special for me. And, I don't know how many more times we'll be able to do it. So it's been really fun and been a cool journey.
We are officially going to hit the halfway mark of the season this weekend in Southwick. It'll be moto number 11 of the year. To start the day, a lot of different racetracks, a lot of different venues, so many different soil types and different characteristics of the tracks coming up. But for you, obviously, I'm sure top 15s is what you're pushing toward, maybe top 10s by the end of the year. But what do you want to check off in the second part of the season? Because I know there is still plenty of racing to go. It feels like the first few rounds flew by, but I'm sure there is stuff that you're really wanting to improve upon for the second half of the year.
I really need to get my qualifying where it needs to be, and it's going to make my day go a whole lot smoother. I've been working on it, at MTF here during the week. We do a sight lap and sprints, so it's not like I'm not putting emphasis on it. It's been my focus, week in and week out, trying to get better, because I feel like I'm hitting my stride as the season goes on. I'm not, like I said, I'm not worried about being there at the end of Moto 2. It's just getting my day going earlier. So that's been my focus, during the week, trying to be better for the weekend, and just getting my head right, from lap one. And hopefully I can do that this weekend, because like you said, it's an important weekend for that.
There's still some time left in the year, 6 rounds of the Pro Motocross season to go, but of course, the narrative is going to start to pick up about the Super Motocross World Championship, the playoffs coming up. So many talented guys in the 250 class right now, but as of now, looking at the sheets, you are 30th in the combined SMX standings, so you would definitely be in line for a wild card spot, plus some racers ahead of you who might drop down the order. They're not currently racing in the class because they are either injured or in the 450 division. You've been in the playoffs the last couple years, obviously on the 450. You were there as an automatic qualifier in 2024. You were there as one of the wild card guys last year with the MX6 crew. Talk about the playoffs. It's going to be a little bit different for you on the 250 this year, but you're right there in the range for one of those wild card berths. And talk about that extra postseason bonus going out to get to some new venues, some different hybrid style tracks, and we've got 3 brand new ones coming up this year. Of course, Columbus, Carson, California, and then the Thunder Ridge Nature Arena in Missouri, which looks like it's going to be a really cool round.
Yeah, for me, the past 2 years, it's been a huge reason why I've been able to keep racing. Honestly, with being able to get that 450 SMX bonus, it's really helped me just get back on my feet with everything. So it's definitely different in the 250. But the goal is for sure to make it in through the wild card, and getting seated. It's probably a bit unachievable at this point, but we're going to keep moving for that wild card spot and just take it as it comes. I think we can do it. I've proven I can do it in the 450 class the past few years. So I think it's definitely an achievable goal, and we're going to go for just we're going to take it as it comes.
One last question, of course, I mentioned the 4th of July aspect this weekend in RedBud. Patriotic graphics, patriotic gear, always all over the place. Talk about your setup and the patriotic vibes over at the MX6 truck, and also how much it meant to you to be able to race on 4th of July weekend. As I talked with Hamden a little bit earlier in the episode, we get to race on 4th of July weekend every single year, but not every year does it fall on the actual 4th of July, and plus with the 250th celebrations. It had to be a really cool experience for you to represent the USA on such a big day.
I mean, when you think of America, I don't think there's a more American way that you can celebrate America's birthday than, having the freedom to race a dirt bike, for all your friends and family and the fans that, in the state you grew up in. So it's definitely special for me, and the team did an awesome job with getting the graphic scheme. Throttle Jockey crushed it. I thought we did a great job with it, and I was stoked to be able to rep America.
This has been Marshal Weltin on the Unsung Heroes talking about his weekend in RedBud, scoring points, inching closer to those SMX playoff spots. Marshall, thank you so much for joining me. And real quick before you leave, as I always do, feel free to go ahead, plug those who have been supporting you. Obviously, we've mentioned the MX6 racing program several times, but give a thank you to those who help you get to the races each and every weekend.
Yeah, the whole MX6 squads, I'm there because of them, and it's been amazing to be a part of their program. I've got some awesome sponsors. David Fernandez has been a huge part of my program, and there's been a lot of people along the way. I it's hard to list everybody individually, but it's awesome to have the people when I've done it on my own to continue to be able to rep them to this point. So shout out to 100% and 6D and everybody that that's helped me get here. It's awesome to continue with sponsors for multiple years and build a relationship. So thank you very much.
Thanks once again for your appearance on the show this week and giving insight to your weekend at RedBud and your season in general. Best of luck at Southwick this weekend, and also best of luck throughout the rest of 2026. Thanks, man.
Yep, thank you.
Now we're going to go ahead and get into things, of course, starting with the 250 class. And man, there were a lot of factory guys that really dominated up front. But Carson Mumford put together another great weekend aboard his AEO Powersports KTM machine. It was 11-7 in the second moto. He was very impressive once again. It was hard to take your eyes off of that battle between Joe Shimoda and Cole Davies up front, but throughout the last portion of the race, of course, Levi Kitchen was 5th, Chance Hymas was 6th, Carson Mumford was 7th, and you probably didn't see it on the broadcast, but Mumford was right there behind those two guys. If either one of them would have made a mistake, Carson Mumford would have pounced and potentially got back around them and maybe scored a career best moto finish. I believe 5th place is his best career moto finish, but he's putting together strong runs. Carson Mumford has been one of the best stories, in my opinion, throughout the outdoor season so far. He has proven that he belongs, and he's really taking the AEO team to another level of performance. 16th place overall with 1614 scores is Dylan Schwartz for Toyota Redlands, Bar X Yamaha. We still haven't seen one of those breakout rides like he's had a couple years in a row. He had that really good one at Millville on the Suzuki. I believe that was the 2024 season. And of course, last year, really great ride at Washougal. But man, he's scoring points at a pretty consistent rate, climbing up the SMX standings. Dylan Schwartz, 16-14, steady out there. Summer Schwartz starting to get closer and closer and closer and to heat up a little bit more. Then, speaking of racers who ran pretty solid, nothing crazy, but putting points on the board and taking points in both motos, that's an impressive accomplishment given the amount of talent in the 250 class this year. Behind him, going 19-17 on Saturday, you heard from him just a few minutes ago, Marshal Weltin on the MX6 Racing Kawasaki. Huge thank you to Marshall for joining us this weekend. Let's see if he can keep climbing up the point standings and climbing up the SMX playoff leaderboard, potentially moving himself up in that wild card fight. But solid round for Marshall in his home race. Southwick this weekend will provide another challenge as he tackles the sand. Parker Ross, points in both motos for the second time this summer. It's been a struggle at times for the sophomore, but RedBud was a step in the right direction. And the second moto, he was one of the biggest movers in that race. He went down early, took the green flag in 37th position, ended up climbing his way back to 20th, so plus 17 is a nice gain for the sophomore. He started to get back in his groove a little bit closer each and every weekend. Hunter Yoder behind him in the overall sheet. 38th, unfortunate mechanical issue took him out of action in the first moto, but Yoder got things better, took 19th after having a bad gate pick, and man, he was really excited. It was Hunter Yoder's first RedBud National, so you can imagine how ecstatic he was to get out there in the Michigan hills in front of all the red, white, and blue, and he was really embracing things from a red, white, and blue do-rag to a jersey swap. Don't know how many people saw that on social media, but yes, he gave one of his practice jerseys autographed it in exchange for a cut-off American flag shirt that he wore around for most of the rest of the weekend. Pretty cool to see Hunter Yoder embracing so much of that RedBud spirit. He was 21st overall on Saturday afternoon. One spot behind him, we talked about Parker Ross in his sophomore season. Avery Long, also in his sophomore season. It's been a tough summer for Avery at times. Come off a broken foot injury, in Supercross, and he's announced that he's been dealing with some autoimmune issues, some kind of sickness that has been lingering for him throughout the last several months and really affecting his performance. That's a bummer, but man, Avery keeps fighting. He keeps on pushing through everything, and he got a 20th in the first moto. He was right there in the back half of points for most of the race. Ended up P20, putting 2 on the board, but unfortunately, his second moto ended early. Hopefully, he'll be able to keep improving health-wise throughout the year. We know he's got some speed. We know he's got some talent. He put together a bunch of great rides last summer and throughout his rookie season. But hopefully, Avery gets back to full health and 100% here soon. Behind him, the last couple riders in points that were privateers who walked away scoring from RedBud. First of all, 23rd overall, Lux Turner. Not a great day. Mechanical gremlins affecting his first moto. Not the first time that's happened. He had issues at Hangtown. Of course, a lot of that was from a start crash. 3rd year anniversary of Lux Turner hitting the pro ranks. He turned pro for that race in 2023, and Lux was actually one of the racers I interviewed following the 2023 RedBud National, but he did return to the points at the end of the day. He got the last point of the 250 day, 21st position, and he was not happy with his performance. He called it terrible in the second moto, and he will be stronger at Southwick, I'm sure. Then 24th position, another point on the board for Gavin Towers on the Phoenix Racing Honda machine. The number 73, of course, he just had his home race at High Point a couple weeks back, and now RedBud, he logged some laps, gained valuable experience. It was Gavin's first trip to RedBud. Of course, he missed last year due to injury, tore his ACL after High Point, missed a big chunk of the season, but Towers putting another point on the board. Shout out to him, holding it down for the Phoenix Racing crew. Now moving on to some SMX Next notes. I was there for my first MX Combine in person. Fun to watch this weekend. It was a lot of great racing up front between the two factory specialists. Of course, Carson Wood, Landon Gibson throwing down. Those guys were going at it. Gibson would close in, Wood would respond, Gibson would close in. Very intense racing up front, but several privateers, several non-factory racers performing pretty well in the event. Leading the way was Cade Kingsford from the Quadlock Honda team. If you know some things about the Australian Supercross and Australian motocross, Cade is currently second in the 250 motocross standings over in Australia. Also, his brother Ryder Kingsford was the 250 Supercross champion in Australia last fall. Another talented brother duo from Australia. Where have we seen that before? But it was a 6-3 day for Cade. This was his second race here in America. He also raced the Ironman Combine last summer. Could have been a 3-3 day or a 4-3 day, but unfortunately, he had a small tip over, and then some smoke began to billow from his motorcycle. He nursed things home in the first moto, and then second moto, he ran fourth for the majority of the race, but on the last lap, he made a sneaky move, ran Cade Johnson wide, took third position. Fourth overall, nice run for Kingsford, and he's heading back home because the Australia Motocross Series will begin their final 3 rounds of the summer starting this weekend. Owen Koval, great ride. Speaking of the MX6 racing team, he gets some support from the team. He is on a Yamaha. Of course, they raced Yamahas in their first season last year. Koval was with the Altus Motorsports Blue Crew effort last year. 5-6 at RedBud. It was a strong weekend. He was right there in that group that included Cade Johnson, Cade Kingsford, a couple other guys as well. Solid performance from Owen. Also in there on the Club MX Yamaha, Jessen Turner. A couple crashes, sent him down the order in the first moto, and then he rebounded. He gained 13 spots after his incident, climbed back up to 8th, salvaging a pretty decent finish. Ran 3rd for the majority of the moto on Saturday, but unfortunately, Johnson and Kingsford both got around him on the same lap after a couple of mistakes. Either way, 8-5 for Turner, logging laps, getting more time in the outdoors. He was on the podium last year at RedBud, so he's probably a little frustrated with how his weekend went, but he's still showing some good pace out there. Some others towards the back half of the top 10. Shout out to Cade Bradley for his consistency. He was the racer who won the Ultimate Rider competition and landed a contract with the SLR Honda team. Consistency paid off for him in the midst of fluctuation. Imagine that. SMX Next with some fluctuation like the 250 class has experienced all summer long. 11-13 for 8th overall. Not scores you usually see, but shout out to Cade Bradley. That was his SMX Next debut. Congratulations to him. Also inside the top 10 overall, we had Gavin Betts on the MX6 Racing Kawasaki P9. Perhaps the first time we've ever seen a racer compete in a Pro National and then race an SMX Next event. A bit weird to see that. But either way, Gavin Betts, top 10, which is solid. Behind him in 10th place overall, Riley Bussey, the number 404 from Wisconsin. And also a shout out to Tegan Kortenbach from Canada, the Alberta native. He raced High Point as a pro. Unfortunately, he went down in practice, did not race the consolation race. Then he went 10-17, a couple crashes in the second moto in the SMX Next division. And he's been riding the Canadian Nationals all summer. He went 9-9 on Sunday at Gopher Dunes. Kortenbach, double duty, shout out to him. And now we move to news and notes from outside of the points. A lot of feel-good stories even outside of the points, including Brody Connolly. First race back in action in 11 months, pretty much. He got hurt at the very beginning of the Australian Supercross series, broke his scaphoid, and then he broke his L1 vertebrae, I believe, right before the 250 East Supercross season. Of course, Brody was the 250 Australian Motocross champion a year ago. He is from New Zealand. He was one spot shy of his first point of the summer and his first point since returning. 24-22 for Brody, rocking number 144 this year. A bit of a change. I believe he was 788 last year. So quite the different number for Connolly. Jonathan Getz, another rider who was one spot away from points, and it would have been Jonathan's first career outdoor point. He did qualify for the Philadelphia main event in the 250 East Supercross season. Jonathan aboard his Husqvarna number 300 from Florida, 22nd in the first moto. He ran inside the top 20 for a good chunk of it. I was very impressed with Jonathan's ride. Unfortunately, fell one spot shy of his first outdoor point. Christian Janik, welcome back to racing. Of course, a lot of people will remember that Janik was one of the rising stars of the sport. He was a hot prospect, climbing his way up the ladder. Team Green Kawasaki had him on one of their machines. Things were looking good. He ended up moving over to the Rock River Yamaha team. Of course, Gizmo Mods, Rock River Power Sports Yamaha last year. Now Gizmo Racing Yamaha. But he suffered a gnarly ankle injury practicing at the Glendale SMX Next event, and he was off the bike for a long time. Very gruesome injury, but he's been working. He's been back on the bike the last couple months, and at his home race in RedBud, he goes out there, qualifies 22nd overall, 25-31 on the day. For Janik to be back racing, that's a huge step for that rider. Welcome back to racing, and welcome to the pro ranks, number 759 on a Yamaha. Not sure how many races he'll be at the rest of the summer, but regardless, awesome to see him back in action after he's gone through so much. And also, a story that I didn't quite know about. I've heard of this rider, but didn't know his full story, and Chris Kiefer was mentioning it on Instagram. Chris Schrader, he's a local Michigan guy, number 889 on a KTM. He just got approved a couple weeks before RedBud to become a pro, got on the entry list, and he ended up qualifying in his first career attempt. He got second in the consolation race and 37th overall on the day. I know ordinarily 37th wouldn't look too great on paper, but for a guy making his pro debut, making his first start, and then once you learn that he fought through acute lymphatic leukemia in his younger years, it went through chemotherapy for 3.5 years. This guy is a true definition of a never give up warrior. Shout out to Chris. Congratulations to him. He said his goal for the weekend was to qualify, and if he qualified, to not get last. Well, guess what? He accomplished both of those goals, and shout out to Chris. He can officially say that he competed in an AMA Pro Motocross National. Hopefully, we see him around a few more times this summer, and what an awesome story there for Chris. Now let's move into the 450 class, and you want to talk about making a mark in his debut in the Premier class. Mark Finnis, number 88, Moto Speed Factory, of course, his usual home where he trains the next generation of riders, also supported from the Tylube Honda racing crew. It was almost a full year away from action from Mark. Of course, he turned pro at the end of 2023, spent 2024 with the Club MX Yamaha team, bounced around a little bit, had a deal for a little bit with the PRMX guys, then joined the Tylube crew last summer, and he was back. And man, it's been a long road back for Mark. He was a very open book when I talked to him on Friday, and also last year at High Point. Anytime I've been able to talk to Mark, he really wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is more than willing to go out and explain to you what is going on in his program, talking to you about how he feels. He's an open book, and he always gives a lot of great insight. He talked about recovering from illnesses in previous years that affected him. He said at one point he lost over 30 pounds because of some of the illnesses and autoimmune stuff that he was struggling with. Then he started to get back on the bike and get going. He ended up getting T-boned and suffering a shoulder injury, breaking a couple ribs, and then he was off the bike once again for 5 to 6 months, and he returned recently. He was on a Honda 450 that had an exhaust pipe, an ECU, and race fuel, and that was it. The rest of the bike was stock, and man, Mark went out there. He was 11th in the second 450 qualifying session, I believe 14th overall in qualifying. He went 13-16 for 13th overall. A great return to racing for the number 88. Of course, he's a local boy, Westville, Indiana, pretty close. Ironman, his home national, but still pretty close to RedBud as well. We will definitely see Mark at Ironman as long as everything goes well. What a return to racing from him. I encourage you to check out my interview from Press Day with Mark, found on the Transworld Motocross YouTube page, speaking with him about what he's been up to in the last year and his road back to the professional ranks. He was very happy to be back at the racetrack. And of course, I had some other views in there as well, talking with rookie Deacon Dino from the 250 class, Hayden Deegan, of course, one of the biggest stars in the sports, and also a living legend. I got the chance to interview Antonio Cairoli as well. Awesome to see the 222 back here in America. But shout out to Mark for the fantastic performance this weekend. Speaking of fellas from around the area, another Michigan boy. We talked about Marshal Weltin in the 250 class. Mitchell Harrison, Money Mitch, 15-15 on the PRMX Kawasaki. Another good ride for Mitch. He's right there on that bubble of the SMX playoffs. He's going to have some work to do. We've mentioned that before, but Mitchell is putting together some solid rides. It was his home race. Ran into Mitchell briefly on Friday. He was all smiles, happy to be back home. 15th place overall. One of my favorite racers to watch during the weekend when I was at RedBud. I'm talking about Roan van de Moosdijk, the Dutch import, of course. If you followed the MXGP series for several years, you know that name. He competed and put together some great results. I believe won a couple GPs as well. F&H Racing, Kawasaki, Neston Husqvarna Factory Racing. Had some different factory gigs. Right now, Roan is competing in most of the MXGP races on a part-time basis, also racing in Germany, also racing in Netherlands for KTM Kosak team, which is a privateer effort. He was also a 2019 member of the Team Netherlands Motocross of Nations winning program, so he has an MXDN victory to his credit. Number 939, of course 39, his usual MXGP number. He came out to America with his team for RedBud and Southwick, and he qualified P7 out of the B group, which is pretty insane. As you know, if you follow the sport, the 450B guys get the most beat up track there is. And of course, the first session, it was still a bit wet, wasn't super muddy, but Things were very technical on that track, and he ended up qualifying 7th overall, a fantastic showing in qualifying. He was running top 15 in the first moto. Unfortunately, some kind of mechanical bug took him out of the race. Ended up with the 35th gate pick, I believe, for that final moto, and he latched on to Dylan Ferrandis and tore through the pack. He was one of the fastest riders on track at certain points. Those two were just blowing through the pack like nobody's business. Van de Moosdijk ended up getting back up to P11, ended up passing guys like Jordan Smith and Antonio Cairoli at the end of the moto. He was on the gas in that second moto. It was a lot of fun to watch, and if you know anything about Roan, you know he's good in the sand. And of course, Southwick this weekend, I think he is going to be one to spoil the party. He's definitely not going to get that clear track of B group if the 450 guys go first. Don't remember if 250s or 450s will be qualifying first this weekend. But either way, if you play fantasy, I would have Van de Moosdijk on my team for Southwick. He ought to be really fun to watch and a really strong competitor. Now into some more feel-good stories, also some tragedy. Of course, thoughts and prayers to everyone in Venezuela who were affected by the earthquakes a couple weeks ago. The Wildcat race team Gas organization racing with heavy hearts. Of course, Lorenzo Lacurcio from Venezuela, the team owner and rider. Daniel Bordelin, also a Venezuela native. Several ties to Venezuela and Latin America on that team. Also, shout out to mi amigo Edwin Gomez from Husky Park TV, Latin America. He is down there a lot in Venezuela. A lot of people from Venezuela with heavy hearts. They have lost loved ones. They have lost their homes. Hopefully, you guys can find a way to maybe help them out. There are things up on the Wildcat Race Team Instagram page. That is wildcat.raceteam. You can find ways to help donate. They also have some QR codes you can scan if you end up going to the race at Southwick this weekend to see what you can do to help relief efforts. And of course, everybody was racing with patriotic graphics for the most parts for 4th of July. The Wildcat race team crew, they decided to go to a different route. They decided to pay respect to all of those who were affected in Venezuela. They blacked out their usual red brace machines, and it was a very inspired day for Lorenzo Lacurcio. Started out rough in the first moto. He gained a few spots early, then went down, but he went on a charge, gained 12 spots after the crash, hit 19th, and then the second moto, he spent the entire race inside the top 15, finished 14th, and that team was ecstatic after the race. Lots of smiles, lots of thumbs up, lots of clapping. The Wildcat crew were ecstatic. Also, I believe Bordelin put together his best moto finish of the season so far. Awesome to see them doing well and representing for their homeland of Venezuela once again. Thoughts and prayers to all of those affected, and hopefully they will be able to rebuild, to come back better and stronger, and also hopefully the Wildcat race team crew can keep up their success and to keep giving some light to Venezuela in a dark time for some of those folks. One spot behind in the 17th position was Valentin Guillot aboard the Gizmo Racing Yamaha. He wasn't super stoked with his performances, went down in the second moto, but still scored points in each race. 14-19, Valentin climbing up the point standing leaderboard as well. Of course, 18th overall. I accidentally misspoke during the interview and said he was 17th overall, but 17-18 scores. Hamden Hudson, what a performance. His 5th 450 motocross race ever, and he put things in the points. Great to hear from him. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview, and hopefully we see the 188 continue to grow and to continue to add points to his total this year. As we get back a little further, we have some racers who had some ups and downs at RedBud, starting with Grant Harlan on the KMR Champion Tool Storage KTM machine. Somehow he got a piece of wood lodged in his rear brake for a few laps during the first moto. He had to pull into the mechanics area to get things removed, and despite the trip off track, he just missed the points, and by just I mean one single spot. He was 22nd at the end of the first moto. Despite making an unscheduled pit stop, he rebounded later on in the day to take 17th in the second moto. Anton Nordstrom was back. He did not compete at High Point. He was competing at Mammoth and in another local race. He's on that Moto Whips Racing KTM. scored his best moto finish to date to begin the day, 18th place at the checkered flag. Great run for Anton. A bit of a different look for the Moto Whips crew. They embraced the KTM machinery, had an orange front fender. They had silver and gray look on the side shrouds of that machine. Swedish Fish riding well to begin the day, and he started climbing forward in the second moto, but unfortunately high-sided in one of the rollers, and Nordstrom left RedBud with a broken collarbone. Speedy recovery. Best wishes to Anton. Of course, we had him on the show a couple weeks ago after his first career pro motocross point at Thunder Valley. He gets a few more, but ends up taking a trip to Broken Bonesville. Hopefully, we see Anton back on track soon. It was a very quiet day for Devin Simonson, the number 89 on the Club MX Yamaha, his second national of the summer. 21-20, gaining more outdoor experience. Of course, Simonson has a lot more experience in Supercross. He's only raced here and there in pro motocross over the last few years, so it was his first trip to RedBud. He's continuing to gain more experience. Hopefully, we'll see Devin at several more races this summer, and I would expect him to be there. Stefan Rubini, another one of the international athletes for the Gizmo Racing Crew. Rubini representing the country of France. He scored his first points here in America since 2023, of course. He wasn't here in 24 and 25, but he suffered that torn Achilles at the beginning of the season, and Stefan was back in the points, 20th in the first moto, 2 points on the board. He said he felt a little bit more like himself during the day, and it was also a nice boost for the team. Unfortunately, Freddie Noren broke his toe during qualifying. Actually, I believe had to have part of it amputated, which is insane. Hopefully, Freddie will be back soon. Best wishes, speedy recovery to him as well. And unfortunately, we've been talking about the start streak. He was on pace to surpass John Dowd in the all-time 450 MX starts leaderboard and become the racer with the most 450 MX starts in history. Now, with an injury, it looks like Freddie's going to have to wait until 2027 to cross that off the list. Then the final rider in the points, Jeremy Hand, aboard his Valley Motorsports Honda. He was running solid early on in the first moto, but went down hard, DNF'd from the race. He returned later in the afternoon, beating fellow Honda rider Justin Rodbell for the final point of the day, 21st position for the number 87 to end things, and he was 24th in the overall leaderboard. To conclude the episode, of course, we'll have some news and notes from outside the points, as well as our Canadian Corner segment. Some notes from outside the points. Brighton Carroll, a very unusual accomplishment on Saturday. Brighton scored a point at Hangtown in 2023, but he managed to score his best overall finish on Saturday at RedBud without a point. Very strange for sure. He was 26th overall that day at Hangtown. He was 25th on Saturday at RedBud, 24-23. Brighton Carroll getting back closer to the points. Second generation racer, of course. Shout out to Ronnie Orez, who qualified for his first career pro motocross motos. 8th attempt for the number 873. Ronnie, another racer from Fort Dodge, Iowa. The seemingly endless list, of course. Justin Brayton, Gavin Faith, Teddy Mayer, Isaiah Clark, Deegan Hepp, Chad Peterson, among those names. Fort Dodge, Iowa, just a breeding ground for motocross talent, and Ronnie went 30-26 in his first afternoon, racing a pro national inside the motos. Final transfer spot in the consolation race to 30-26 scores. That's pretty solid, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the ISRT Kawasaki crew had a rough weekend, a really rough weekend. Both riders, Cornelius Tondell, Vince Friese, mechanical issues in both motos. Just an awful day, and it really sucks for Tondell because he was running up around the 9th position, I believe, before he had his issues. A real bummer to end the afternoon. But shout out to the ISRT crew. Hopefully they can turn things around at Southwick. We know Tondell is fast at Southwick after his performances a year ago. Hopefully that bunch can get things back on the right track. And I mentioned the Canadian Corner, and I know he's not an American, but I mention him every week because he has appeared in this series several times in the past. Harry Coulis, racing for Red Bull KTM Canada. He got his first Canadian National overall victory 2-1 scores. He got some hole shots as well at Gopher Dunes, round 4 of the Triple Crown Series. And Dylan Wright began the day as he has done throughout the season. I believe Wright has went 1-1 in the first 3 rounds of the season. He's been dominant, but a bike failure, a mechanical issue, took him out of Moto 2, and Harry Coulis was there to capitalize and secure his first win up in Canada. Congratulations to him. Also, shout out to Preston Kilroy. The last time we had our segment, Preston was still defending his number 1 plate in the 250 division, but MX 101 star in the 450 class, Jess Pettis, went down with a torn ACL. They decided to make the decision to move Kilroy up to the 450, and he's been on the overall podium at both rounds he's competed on a 450 machine. Congrats to Preston for his success. He's had some starts on a 450 before, both here in Canada and a couple here in America, and he's keeping the blue brand in the fight up in the front. Also, more Americans in the 450 class. Shout out to Racer X contributor. He used to be a full-time privateer here in the States. Races here and there every once in a while. Travis Delnicki, 13-15 for 14th overall. Just behind him, Corey Karsten, of course. He pulled double duty, unfortunately missed the cut at RedBud. Got a 9th in the first moto, but failed to score points in the second at Gopher Dunes. And also Dane Morales. He's still an amateur rider here in America. He did win the 250 the lights title of the AMA Arena Cross Series earlier this year. Morales was a part of the MRP SBR Husqvarna team last year, now doing things on his own. He also had several starts in the Partzilla Arena Cross Series. He got a 12th in what I think is his first career Canadian motocross moto, but unfortunately he was a DNF to end the afternoon. And then in the 250 class, real quick, before we conclude, of course, Ryder Malinowski took control of the points lead here in recent weeks. He's on that MX 101 Yamaha, of course, the Club MX Amateur here in America. 2-1 day, he split the motos with Dylan Rimple, 2 young racers competing there at the top of the Canadian class. And also some great results from Americans, Joe Tate and Kyle Murdoch, 2 Northeast natives, Joe from Connecticut, Kyle from Massachusetts. Top 5 overall. Great performances for those guys north of the border, and they spoiled the party for some of the Canadian regulars. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this week's episode of the Unsung Heroes. Thank you so much for tuning in to hear about the top privateer performers of the 511 RedBud National. Thank you once again to Hamden Hudson for his appearance on the show. If you want to go back, read and listen to Hamden's former appearances on shows that I have done. He was on the Unsung Heroes of Birmingham last year, still when it was just a written only article series. And also he was on the Stire Sound episode 2 last year when we first got our series going. Congratulations to Hamden. Look out for the number 188 for the rest of the summer. Also, a big thank you to Marshal Weltin for his appearance on this week's show. MX6 Racing Kawasaki, watch out for the number 65 for the rest of the year in the 250 class. And also, if you like to read the articles of the Unsung Heroes, go back. There's tags on all of the articles. You can also find the pieces I have done previously with Marshall. Look out for him the rest of the season as he pushes toward the SMX playoffs. The AMA Pro Motocross Championship will be sand surfing this weekend in Southwick. Life's a beach. I'm just playing in the sand. Hopefully, we see a lot of privateers turn heads, put together great results this weekend, and we'll be back to recap all of the action at the Wick. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Trey Stire. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope to see you after Southwick.